Sort
not
of.
far. Making your dinner, Will.
Yeah, sure.
What's on your plate
just
tonight?
straight into a run. You see, it's basically lentils and kind of bolognese, basically.
Yeah, we had that made into lasagna tonight, similar, but I make it into a lasagna as well.
Okay, yeah.
Because do you do that with your base, Will? Do you swap it up into other foods yet?
Not yet. At the moment, I'm trying to cook on Sundays and then have the weekdays off.
Yeah.
So I freeze a fair bit, either fridge or freeze food.
Yeah. Well, like last week I made up, it's got to be 10 litres at least of a red lentil tomato, not a curry, just like a tomato base, like when you've got like a bolognese, and then I'll make into about 4 different dishes. So you freeze them and then they're good to go.
Yeah, I think that's really the way to go. At the moment, I usually portion out what I consider to be a portion of rice and a portion of whatever I'm eating into one lunchbox.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we'll let you sit down and get your dinner. It still makes me laugh when we're walking around with a screen in our hand. It reminds me of that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie when they're on Mars, Total Recall, I think it was called. Something like that.
They had that guy at a home video. He was going around the tourist attractions. He had a selfie stick and apparently had the camera turned the wrong way around, trying to film everything, but it's just filming him. Paris, he's saying, "Oh, look at this, it's a Grand Canyon," and that is just filming him.
Oh dear, it takes all sorts. Oh, funny. Anyway, how's your week been, Max, with food and all of that jive?
Yeah, it's just still. I'm having the breakfast. I think the oats that Tracy made for breakfast, the porridge. So I have that for breakfast, the lunch, and then dinner. Just feels like a lot of food.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because would you say you're overeating?
Just.
Yeah, okay.
There's not having any snacks or anything else, so it's not spreading that out.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's because when I eat, I normally eat 3, sometimes 4 times a day. Just depends how hungry I am. But I'm definitely full. Like it's like quite a fine line between full and over full.
Yeah.
So most meals I'm finishing and I'm like, okay, I wouldn't be able to eat anymore. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Probably if you're uncomfortable. But does it pass? Does the fullness pass relatively quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, I find, maybe a similar thing. I'll be full.
And a bit gassy as well, sort of. So it just feels full. Like before I even start eating, I feel like I don't feel hungry.
Yeah, okay. Because with like gas and stuff like that, it might be that either there's a couple of things. It might be that the lentils aren't being, which is probably not likely with your wife, Trace, but either the lentils aren't cooked properly or your belly's, maybe you are eating too much too soon, like more.
Yeah.
So it's a bit hard without measuring it type thing. But you want to be, I mean, it depends. Some people don't like to be really full. Hey, Morris.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. You?
Good, thanks.
That's good. Yeah, but maybe if it is a problem, Max, just back it off a little bit on the lentils and the beans and stuff. And for some people, myself included, some beans I don't digest them as well as others.
Yeah.
Some no problem, some not so good. So maybe if there's some beans you've introduced or Tracy's introduced, maybe just...
Maybe because I had, when I came back last week, I had a bit of the shits, picked up a bug or something. and that threw me out for probably a week or so.
Yeah.
Just to get the stomach all sorted out.
Yeah, well, I reckon like the times we've been to Bali and we have got only a touch of a bug, it's a good couple of weeks before it's we're right again.
I think it was just something on the plane on the way back home from, I think, Morocco. It wasn't too flashy, I think.
Yeah. Well, your wife tells me food stories about you, so.
Food stories.
I won't say. Hey, guys.
It's that saying, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah. I'll be the first one to go, yep. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Christy Lee. Sorry, mate.
All right. Got a few people having dinner. You had your dinner, Morris?
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah.
Just leftovers.
Yeah, well, yeah. They're good.
I'm full though, I'll tell you.
We were just discussing fullness.
Yeah, I'm very full.
Mm.
But the problem is, I don't get full until about 15 or 20 minutes later, you know. So I tend to...
Oh, so you get over full? So are you saying over full?
Yeah, I don't feel great now.
But is that like a normal thing that happens?
Yeah, basically.
And we were just talking about it a second ago, does that, so you eat and then 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes later, you're really full, but then in another 20, 30 minutes, has that passed?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, then I feel okay.
Yeah, and that's probably pretty normal, because I was just saying the same thing. Like when I eat, I pretty much eat and I'm full. I couldn't eat anymore. But it's still, so I couldn't eat anymore, but then 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, it's passed.
Yeah.
But then I don't need to eat again until the next meal.
Yeah, I think I'm just wondering whether it's because I eat too fast. I can't help myself.
Yeah, okay. That can be hard. That's just a habit that I mean, I'm a relatively fast eater, but I do slow down. Powers is shocking. He eats really fast as well. So, I don't know, maybe you have to do the chew 100 times thing.
What if it's really soft, though?
Yeah, I don't know. Pretend. Or you just practice, put your fork and knife down.
Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe do a couple of laps of the table and sit down.
In between. And something that if that really, really helps with digestion is if you are full, is even if you go for a 5-minute walk outside, it will move the food through.
Yeah.
So maybe if you get into a place where you are quite uncomfortable, you've eaten too much, go for a walk and just see if that works, because that's what we do if we happen to overeat one night, because it's easy to do. We just go for a burn around the block, like minutes. And it doesn't have to be a fast walk. It can just be moving.
Yeah.
So that can be helpful too. So, all right. Welcome, everyone. Hope you had a good week. Had some successes and some failures. Failures are good too. So, has anyone got any questions or comments or sharing or whatever?
Yeah, I've got a general one, Christy. So I suppose firstly, thanks for that email. There was a lot of very good information. I really liked the 1-day diet that you put up and all the protein, the carbs, all the vitamin minerals you're hitting. Probably a generic question is, if you were looking at how you define a healthy person is different to everyone. If you're looking at a healthy person, we're obviously eating the right foods all throughout the week and all year. What would you consider a healthy exercise? I'm not doing competitions. I'm just trying to, not me specific, but generally keep questioning. Do I do yoga on a Monday or run on a Tuesday, weights on a Wednesday, rest on a Thursday, etc., etc.? What would you consider the good health kind of?
Well, personally, I think you need to move your body every day.
Yep.
So, and that can be, I think you need to move your body every day. A rest day, a rest day if you're tired. Again, it depends on how much you're training. Like if you're training a lot, when I used to compete, I would basically work on a 10-day fortnight, and I would probably train at the most 5 days and then have 5 days rest. Not in that order, but I might train twice, have a rest, train once, have 2 days rest. So, and I would just swap it around how I felt. But for an everyday person, just to be healthy, I reckon that you've got to do, and the recommendation, the total recommendation is 90 minutes of moderate, of brisk walking. So that's brisk walking every day. That's 90 minutes. That's a long time. But they've watered that down. Like if you go to the World Health Organization and look at what theirs is, there's 90 minutes. But most governments have watered that down, or Western governments have watered that down to 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It used to be 30 minutes. And a few years ago, they swapped it back down to 20 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I can't quote it word for word, but they said something around that 60 to 90 minutes wasn't doable for people. So they bumped it right down to 20 minutes, which is I can't think of what the word is. You know, when you treat people like they're stupid?
Condescending?
Hey?
Condescending or not? No.
Yeah, probably, rather than giving people probably what you need to do and then letting everyone go, okay, I need to do, on average, you need to do 90 minutes of moderate exercise every day, already treating us like we're stupid or dumb and watering that down to 20 minutes. So then, people will take the 90 minutes and do what they can, or people will take the 20 minutes and do what they can. So yeah, I reckon 90 minutes will. But in that, I think it's vital to make sure that you have a good stretch routine.
Yeah.
I think that's vital if we want to stay flexible and mobile. And then also, if you are tired, then you rest.
Yeah.
So, and another practice that people can build into their exercise routines, which I used to do as well. It took me many, many years to be able to do it because I sort of don't have an off button sometimes, is to, like, athletes will train for, and Jim, you can maybe give your version too. Athletes can train for maybe 8 weeks or 10 weeks really hard and then have a whole week off, because what you're actually wanting to bring some balance back into is the nervous system. Not so much the muscles, and it's the nervous system that needs a rest, and the nervous system rests by resting. Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Jim, do you have a set period of time where you actually rest?
Yeah, generally we have a training block of maybe about 4 weeks.
Yep. And then how long do you rest for?
And generally have a cutback week, so it's not a total rest. It's basically just letting your muscles repair, letting them absorb the training, and just getting some good sleep, so you're not getting up early to do a lot of speed work. So you're just generally doing easy paced running. So you might cut back. You'll do sort of a build on your distances of about 10% each week, similar to what you were saying last week, where you're adding weight or adding reps, and you're adding about 10% rule.
Yeah.
Your long distance runs. And then when you're cutting back, you're probably cutting back by about 70% on your workout.
Yeah, so it's okay. Yeah. And then if you find that you are really bogged down or really tired, Jim, do you have a complete rest?
Yeah, but you've got to generally not complete rest. It's generally you cut back a lot more.
Back off. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you're back right off, and obviously before your event, before a marathon, you're probably going for about a 2-week taper, where you're cutting back by about 30% the first week, and then
also leading into the event.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Pair any little hairs, just freshen your up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, that makes sense, because when we used to compete, we would our training would change 2 weeks out, and it would just get lighter and lighter and lighter leading into. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Will? Enough?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the other thing is you can't train at 100% for 12, 16 weeks without burning yourself out. You've got to treat it as a block, have a cutback, let your body absorb and repair, and then get into your next block. And it might be like a speed block, a strength block, a hills block.
Yeah.
Focusing on different strengths or different areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I suppose what Jim is talking about is the more the elite side of training. What the question then you have answered it was kind of what is the average Joe minimum requirements for good health for forever and ever and ever.
So 90 minutes of weight-bearing exercise. Yeah. So, and then as we get older, because walking is essentially enough to keep the bones strong, because it is weight-bearing. Yeah. Essentially, that is enough for probably, like I said, the average Joe and Jill. So, but then because we as a society are becoming less active, then that's when we need to do more. And you can apparently, and I don't know the science behind this, but it sort of makes it didn't make common sense to me, because I thought that it was true, is that I thought that even though I'm not an office person, so I don't think I've ever sat 8 hours on my ass in one, probably on a plane, that would be about it type thing. But you cannot offset sitting on your bum for 6+ hours with exercising every day. So, yeah, 1 hour a day doesn't offset being sedentary, because the thinking used to be that if you were sedentary sitting behind a desk or whatever, that if you got up and moved your body, you would then be healthier. But what they're actually starting to theorize now is that it's actually the being sedentary that's the problem. Did I explain that okay? It's the sitting, it's the sitting or the being still. And that's why, like if you watch Dr. Greger or more and more now, well, it started with standing desks and then desks with treadmills underneath. So not so much in Australia, a little bit more over east apparently, but in the America, there's more and more of that sort of thing coming. So yeah, they reckon it's worse to be seated, and then it's better to be standing at a desk, and then of course if you can move, then it's better. But that's like desk work, whereas sitting, it's not good for the body. They don't from what I've read, they don't know why. They just know it's no good.
The sit-stand desk is actually quite common where I work in my industry. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've just got a bar table at home, and I just stand. I actually find it more comfortable to stand now than to sit. So, yeah. Any questions, guys? Shoot them out. All right. I'm going to put where I put them. I lost them. I asked a couple of questions. If you read them, doesn't matter if you didn't. And I just did. So did anyone get a chance? And you don't have to say yes, actually, just in case you were really bad and you didn't do it. But no, I'm only joking. In the last email, I just asked, because it'll be probably one of the main questions that you'll get, is just to get your thinking around protein. So like the first one I asked was, what is protein? And what comes up in your head? So if I go, what's protein? What is it?
Amino acids.
You studied it. You're good.
Oh, no, I did this in school.
Very good. Yeah. But what would the average Jill and Joe, like, what would we say?
Muscle. I don't know.
Meat.
Yeah.
Meat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Most people say protein is meat, and it's not. Yeah. So it's just, that was something I wanted you to think about in case you were stuck on it. Does anyone have any concerns about protein deficiency? Anybody? And don't feel silly if you do. Anyone?
Sort of. Yes.
You do?
Yeah. I bought some protein powder.
Yep.
Plant-based one.
Yep.
A few weeks ago, but I haven't used it for a while. But yeah, if I think I'm down on that, I just take some of that.
Yeah. Okay. There's no recorded cases, and I'm going to flip this through to you, so you guys, because I always try to back it up with something, so it's not just me flapping my gums. There's no recorded case of protein deficiency in the Western world. Protein deficiency only comes, I said that completely wrong, in the Western world with low calories. So you only get protein deficiency if the calories are low. So if you're eating enough calories, then you're going to be getting enough protein. It might be minimal, like if you were on the crazy potato diet. I shouldn't say that, but I think it's crazy. I'm not suggesting it. Well, I am suggesting it is crazy, but I don't know that. But if you were just eating potatoes, or just eating brown rice, or just eating foods like that, then you would you would be low in other vitamins and minerals, but your protein would be covered. Because protein, there's a little controversy around this, that they say there's like 21 amino acids, yeah? And the 9 of them, I was going to say 9, that's not 9. 9 of them our bodies don't make. So we have to source those 9 from foods outside, yeah? So outside of us, I eat those 9, and then my body, whether it be 20 or 21, then my body, like Lego, joins the different ones it needs together to build whatever this body needs, yeah? So we used to think back in the 20s, I think it was the 20s, if anyone knows correct me, back in the 20s is when we first discovered protein. And they looked at our protein. Hopefully I don't butcher this too much. They looked at what we needed, and then they went, what is the closest, can't think of what word I'm looking for, what is the closest protein, same to us, and it's meat. I don't know how I really butchered that one there. Yeah, so meat is the closest, so animal meat is the closest thing to our protein. They weren't going to suggest we eat each other, so they had a look at animals. So that's where complete protein, the word came from, because animal products have a complete amino acid profile, as does soy, just like meat. So it has a complete, so the theory is, or was, that if I eat this complete protein, so if I cover all of those, I'm okay. But they're now starting to theorize that eating a complete protein at the rates that we eat it is too much for our bodies. And just as most of our health problems come from overconsumption, not underconsumption. So that theory basis is based on, again, if we overconsume something, it's better than less, what they call incomplete proteins. Because incomplete proteins, so I eat rice, I eat an edamame bean, I eat a date, I eat an apple, I eat a sesame seed, whatever, my body will then, in its own wisdom, pull out what it needs and form that into whatever protein my body needs at the time. Did I manage to make that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good explanation of protein.
Oh, thank God for that. But how's that feel, Morris?
Yeah. So I want to know, what are the signs of not having enough protein then?
There's so many signs, Morris, that you like. If you Dr. Google it, you will already have it. Okay, so it's like brittle nails and brittle hair and thin hair and jaundice and yellow. Oh, that is jaundice. Grey skin. So there's so many things. But what I want you to have a look at yourself. Really have a look at that protein deficit. So back, what's his name? Colin Campbell, Dr. Colin Campbell. He was charged back earlier in the 60s to go out into, I forgot where it was. Someone help me. No, China. Yep. Hence the China study. Oh dear.
China. It was in the Philippines first, though.
That's the word I was looking for. So they sent him off to the Philippines because the kids in that were dying of protein deficiency. So he actually went there he had come from being a dairy farmer or a farmer. He came from being a dairy farmer specifically. He actually studied his whole career trying to understand and make better, if that's a word, make better animal protein in our diet. So that was his mindset, was animal products is what we need, blah, 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 blah. So he's gone off down to the Philippines to save these people. And then, long story short, he's found out that animal protein actually poisons the people. So us, it's actually, if that's probably not the best way to put it, well, it probably is okay actually. It poisons the person, and they were better off with plant protein. So they actually saw that the casein and there's another word I'm looking for, I can't think of what it is now, but I'll put it in the email, is actually a toxin. It turns on cancer. So when
casein only in plant, in only meat protein?
Casein's in dairy.
But protein, I can't think of the word now, but again, I'll flick you the directly. But guys, and Morris, if you have any questions on protein, read the China study. I think you should read it anyway. I read it every year because I forget it. It just goes in one ear and out the other half of the stuff. So every year I read it. It's a fantastic book. It's quite sciencey at the beginning, but he does a fantastic job of delivering it in layman's terms.
Christy, I don't think the kids were just protein deficient, though. I think they were malnourished.
No, but that's what I meant earlier when I said. So they were only, Morris, and thank you, Tara, for picking that up. They were only protein deficient because they were malnourished.
So no one in the Western world has a protein deficiency.
Yeah, there's not one
thing unless you're malnourished.
Yeah, there's
so
not
protein isn't a thing you should be concerned about. Am I getting enough protein? It's not a thing in the Western world unless you're not eating enough.
But you know, Tara, it is a thing because we all worry, not all of us, but if I go collectively, we all do worry about it. So it is a thing, but it's not a real thing.
I mean, I've been whole food plant-based for a long time, so I don't worry about it, but
yeah, and I mean, I don't worry. And Morris, when I used to worry about it, and every so often I maybe go, oh, maybe I still do it. Oh, maybe I need some more protein. I find myself eating more food than I need. Whereas when I just eat and I stop worrying about it, even if I track it on Chronometer, I have enough protein. I've got enough. So I would really encourage you to really look into it and learn about it and that's why I asked that question, what is protein? Because most of us think protein is something that it's something outside of ourselves, which it is in ways, but it can quite easily lead us into buying foods that we now know aren't very good for us in large amounts.
Okay, so but when you say don't worry about it, and okay, like you say, a lot of us, while there's no real need in the Western world to worry about it, we all want to know what our targets. And I think you were saying the target is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight.
Yeah. Well, I think I did. I'm trying to rattle these numbers off from my brain, so I might butcher them, but I will email you tomorrow. For the average woman, they have actually set the new protein requirements across the board at 50 grams per person. Yep.
Big or small, old or young?
Yep. Well, that's across the board, because 50 will cover to what we actually need. Breast milk is 3% protein.
Yeah.
So for me to get, so they've actually set they've set the limit at 0.8. Yeah, it's actually 0.5, but they round it up. Like we do a lot of things. So it is 8, but it's actually 5. And so even when I've tracked my food, if I don't add any like conscious protein source that I would normally say, beans, lentils, tofu, things like that, if I don't consciously put that in my meal, I'm trying to think a minimum. I reckon I've been hard pressed to get under 50 grams. If I'm eating rice, different case if I'm just eating above ground vegetables. Yeah, because I've got to eat so much. So I'm not
starchy vegetables.
Yeah, so starchy not starchy, but above ground, like green stuff, yellow stuff. But once you eat starchy vegetables or grains and things like that, even if they were all that you ate, you will still get enough protein. Even if you don't have beans, I'm not suggesting you do that, but you will still get enough protein, even if you just were to eat brown rice and potatoes, and definitely sweet potato, because sweet potato is high, and then above ground veggies. Did that answer that, Will?
Yeah, so on the 1 day diary you sent through, you had 99 grams of protein in that day, and which is your target roughly was 90. Yeah, your target was 100 grams.
Yeah, and I didn't set those targets. That's just what Chronometer set for me.
Yeah, and coincidentally you did eat that quantity, 92 grams.
Yeah, and so that's a lot. That's well enough. And so some days it'll drop right down. Like if I think today I just had rice, not just rice, but rice as my carbohydrates, as my more beefy part of the meal. I had a few red lentils as well with me, sorry. But yes, that's easy. It really is, because we were actually, Pals and I were talking about what yours was likely to be. So I mean, if you're hitting 80 grams a day, it's plenty. It's plenty.
Yeah, considering we only have to get to 50.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course it would be different for different people. And if you were going through periods where, like pregnant and lactating women, they do need more, they're starting to think that people over the age of 65 need more. There's it's just seemingly talk at the moment, but they're starting to go, okay, maybe older people need to up their, increase their protein. And then maybe people might need to do it if they're exercising more, but I can't. Maybe bodybuilders, but even that I just don't know because I just don't know. So they go 1.2, Will. 1.2 for bodybuilding. Yeah, it used to be 2.2. We used to count it at 2.2.
Yeah.
So, and of course, when we used to count it, we would count it and not even think about the other foods. It would only be in animal product.
Yeah, because coincidentally though, I know friends that have done, let's say, trying to bulk up, and they have definitely maximized their protein either through chicken or meat, and they've gotten the results they were looking for. So maybe it's just the fact that they worked hard and they didn't need the more protein.
Absolutely. I only competed once when I was on a whole food plant-based diet, and it would have been one of the times that I was the biggest and the leanest that I was. I mean, I'm pretty scrawny now, and I'm about 61 kilos, say, but I was on stage at 70 kilos. That's fairly heavy as well for a woman. So yeah, you I forgot where I was going with that. And the thing with the protein that I find really fascinating, and there's not a lot of literature on it, is that how we fatten cattle, and when we fatten the cattle, they're not fat on the outside like, say, we are. Yeah, we get fat and our fat is on the outside. But there's something to do with the can't think what the word is, but the feeding every 2 to 3 hours. So that constant feeding with training, with that constant feeding, puts the fat intermuscularly. Yeah, not under the skin. And the fat that's intermuscular is just as dangerous, if not more. And they're tying that in now with diabetes, with type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, where they're saying that the fat is clogging up the muscle and the cell. So there's fat going into those now, and which makes us bigger. Because when you chop a piece of steak, you know, what's inside the steak? What's the white lines? It's fat.
Yeah.
But if you look at the cow on the outside, it's not like we are when we're that fat.
True.
Yeah. I'll try and find some. I've got a book, but again, I'll try and find some literature on it, and just so you can read it, because I find it really interesting. And that's when a cow comes off the field, they put it into a feedlot for 3 months, I think, 3, 4, 5 months, and then they feed it intensely with grains. Well, not only grains, they feed it enriched food. I don't know if you want to know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So enriched food has got animals in it. Yeah, so they feed cows cow blood. Do you remember mad cow's disease back whenever it was a few years ago? Yeah, that practice came about because they fed cows. But don't worry, I'm being completely sarcastic. I'm sorry if I annoy anybody. I don't mean to, but I can't help it. So we don't feed cows anymore. We still feed them cows blood, but we don't feed cows, but we feed cows chickens, pigs, turkeys, fish, and then reversed. Yeah, so the other animals get fed animals. So it's pretty, and that's even if you go on Australian agriculture and have a look at the feed, it'll say enriched feed. You have a look at it, and then if you're able to back that off a bit, back that back, you'll find out what it is. So it's pretty, I personally find that a little bit scary. I go, holy crap. Fish are carnivorous, so they do eat animals, but cows, they don't. They're meant to eat grass. So they're just some things to consider. Organic cows, they still have enriched food as well. Yeah. Any questions? I'll try and find those other questions.
What about chickens? What do they eat?
Oh, chickens eat bloody anything if you've ever had them. But yeah, chickens, it's the same, Morris. They feed them what they call enriched feed. So they eat other animals. It's really, it's turned into a really sad process because they eat other animals. They eat feces. Do you know what I mean? They pack this food. They eat cement. They used to put bloody cement. I don't know if they still do, but they used to put cement in the feed because they're heavier. I mean, birds. They put chickens in baths of water. I can't remember what they're called right now. They've got a specific name. Tara, if you remember, tell me. So they put these chickens in, all I can think of, it's called fecal bath because that's what they call it but it's not actually obviously called that. So chickens, they pop them into water. The water gets sucked into the chicken, so it weighs at least 20% more. Why? Because it weighs more. Yeah, so that's one of the ways. Apart from that, we use antibiotics make animals grow fast. So antibiotics to make them grow fast. We also put chickens in particular, Morris, into water so they weigh more. And the issue with that is that all of the chickens go into the same water. And of course, when birds go through the slaughtering process, of course, they're not completely clean. So that's when they call it a fecal pond, because it's got poop and it's got things. Come on, what if we were all in the bath together? Who wants to do that? Nobody. Yeah, so did that sort of answer some of it? There's some really, really good books that are I found really, really hard to read, and they go into what happens in slaughterhouses. So if you needed a reason to not want to eat so much meat, so say if you do the 6-week challenge, then all of a sudden you want to go back and eat a heap of meat, but you don't really want to, it can be a really good way of learning how they process the meat. So that can be a way to do that, aside from any moral or ethical issues. It's just what they actually do, just what's actually done to the food that we eat. Yeah? So that can sometimes be helpful.
Or you can watch Dominion or Earthlings or Lucent, which is an Australian pig farm documentary.
Yeah.
Yes, they're pretty. I watched one of them, yeah. I've actually been to a slaughterhouse myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked in a chook farm when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty and I think I do not believe that it's because people are bad or anything like that. It's just the system. They don't have a choice. It's how the business has progressed, and it's money driven. It's not welfare driven. It's sometimes every so often a truck will come past and it'll have, I can't remember what it is, but some pictures of these cows out on this lovely farm, and the milk comes from here, and that's what we want to see. It's what we want to imagine, because I think most people, if given the chance, would choose that over how meat is produced today. If you look on the Australian, I'll write this down. If you look on the Australian Agriculture website, can't think of the right name right now, apparently 70% of Australian farms are CAFO farms, factory farms. That's a lot. That's a lot. Whereas I thought it was more America. I wanted to think that way, but it's not. It's just as prevalent here. Cows probably have it the best out of all of them. Cows probably have it the best. All right. Any questions?
What about, cow's milk is an interesting one, isn't it? Like, you like cheese and that sort of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of vegetarians eat cheese.
Cheese has got casomorphins. Casomorphins. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So they are a really, really mild form. It's almost like comparing marijuana to speed. Yeah. So, or marijuana to that new stuff, whatever that new stuff is called, crack cocaine. It's a low grade, gives a low grade morphine effect in the brain. They've measured it. It's almost like the science is not out on that. Now it's public opinion catching up to that. So dairy, there's some fantastic, just on YouTube, Dr. Neil Barnard, he is really, really cluey, particularly with the dairy issue. So it is something to look at. With the cheese, back 30 years ago, we didn't even eat, Australia and America hardly ate cheese. The people who ate cheese were cheese lovers. And they ate that stuff that stinks and is really strong. And I'm not a cheese connoisseur, I'm sure you can tell. So they were the cheese eaters. But then because the dairy, supposedly, as the story goes, because the dairy industry took off so fast, there was a surplus of of leftover dairy, can't think what the word is now, stuff. So they started making cheese out of it. And then they had to sell the cheese. And how the subsidies help to work is that the government helps promote that. So all of a sudden, Domino's, Wendy's in America, yes, Domino's, Wendy's, McDonald's, they started to bring more cheese into everything. I mean, if I look out now at the advertising, so much of it has got cheese on it. And that's because, and same as whey protein. If you are interested in whey protein, have a look at the history of it. Because before then, there wasn't. Whey protein is a byproduct of the dairy industry. They've got to sell this stuff, and they sell it as a supplement. So dairy is absolutely. If I had to say, like, if I had to pick one of the foods that people would get out of their diet, it would be dairy. It's probably at this point seems the most dangerous. Is that your wife calling?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll put some links through for you, Morris, so you can have a look at that. And another thing, and again, sometimes I feel a bit, I'm not ever meaning this in a judgmental way, because there was a time that I ate these foods, not so much dairy, but I would have if I had been a dairy eater. I just didn't like it, so I didn't eat it, but I would have been. I ate lots of meat. Is that the farming practices or the cruelty practices around dairy as well? So it's just as rife with every other meat. So that can be ways to educate yourself, and also to understand that, you know, maybe things like dairy cows don't need to be milked. Yeah, they don't need to be milked, but they get pregnated every year. So they get pregnated every year. They have their baby's taken off them, then they're artificially milked. But they wouldn't in real life be under that pressure, or not, you know, however many months of the year, and that they're milked when they're pregnant, and they're constantly milked and constantly milked and constantly milked. So it's looking at, does eating something of an animal that's in that much stress, is it good for you? They're just questions that I ask myself as well. I don't know the answer. My common sense tells me it's if I had to choose between, like you guys, and there was some were healthy and some were unhealthy, I'd want to eat the healthy ones. Yeah. So that's just a thought, maybe think about.
But in the most basic conclusion, so in the most basic conclusion, in any case, like ignoring the meat and dairy, you've proven, and it has been proven, that everything you could possibly need can be got from the whole food plant-based. And that's the full stop, start and end.
Yep, absolutely. And then depending on, I think one of the reasons, and maybe it's just it probably is at the beginning, was for my own self. I needed to look at the moral issues. I needed to look at the economic, the social, the environmental. I needed to look at those other subjects, because I say there's health, environmental, social, economic, and moral is how they tend to look at animal production. So my health, when I only counted my food from my health, that would wax and wane with how I felt. If I had some feeling that I wanted to eat something, then I would eat it. You know, I would cave sometimes and I would eat it. Sometimes I'd be strong. But as I started to educate myself on those other 4 issues, that became the byproduct of those. It didn't matter, or it doesn't matter now, if I feel like, and I don't so much now, just because I think I've been eating this way for long enough, is if I wanted to eat something, I had so many other reasons why I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Did I make that make sense? And,
yep.
And that, to me, ties in with the food rules, because it makes it real. They're really concrete, defined lines for me. And it then it was just a process of practicing those for a period of time. And I honestly wouldn't have believed that like I wouldn't eat sugar and I wouldn't want animal products. And take me back 6 years ago and I wouldn't have thought that I would eat the way I eat. I just wouldn't. And Maura sent in a really, really good question and a little bit of an article about the impact of the environment. And again, the environment is just one of those 5. Because whatever happens, of course, with the environment is almost like, well, they all come out of that. So if that's the earth, everything else comes out of that. And the animal, at this current state, animal agriculture, the way that we eat predominantly as the Western world eats, and remembering that the Western world is infiltrating out into China, into Africa, into all these other places, and we cannot sustain the environmental impact, the economic impact. It is massive. It's really, really massive, and it's really, really worth looking at. I'm not going to go into this because I still don't understand it. I don't think I ever will, but I find it really fascinating and mind-boggling when I actually learnt what fair trade was about. I thought fair trade was about like feeding hungry people. It is not. It's a business, and it dumps food on less fortunate countries, and then like I said, I don't want to go into it, but if you want to learn a little bit about fair trade, if you don't know much about it, I would definitely say do some reading about it, and I can help you with some stuff if you like. It's really fascinating stuff, and just goes to show how, so say for instance, in America, where they are, how do I put that into words? They are growing foods for less than what they're making, what they're selling them for, but they get subsidies to cover that. So then they have an overabundance of corn or whatever, and then they flog this corn off to some other country like Mexico, like they did. They flogged this corn off to Mexico at such a low price that it put the Mexican farmers out of business. Yeah, so it's really...
And they break it down for artificial sweeteners and all sorts of stuff they make out of it.
Yeah.
The primary resource for them now.
Yeah. It's really, really, I find it really, really fascinating and interesting, but it's really dirty business. It's not moral. It's almost like going, here's business. There's not a lot of morality in business. I'm not talking the individual. I'm not, but once you're, the people who make our food, the people who make our dairy, they have... And again, it's not they as in the people, say like in America where now corporations are considered a people, so it's a food corporation, it's a person. They're about money. It's about money, not about health. So some of that stuff can be really fascinating if you want to. So say you wanted to stay eating this way, but you're a little bit wobbly because you were missing your foods or things like that. It's something to learn about. Even the pharmaceutical companies, to learn about, is our health their top priority, or is it making the shareholders their top priority? So when you look at it from that, whereas if you own, and that, hopefully I can make this make sense. Whereas if I look at everything from a health perspective, if I don't look at everything through an economic perspective, it changes it as soon as I do. Did that sort of make sense? So if I look at the supplement industry, when I look at it through an economic view, it changes it. Whereas if I look at it through a health view, I'm limited. Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? But I've got to go, well, hang on a minute. What does the pharmaceutical companies, are they there for my health? No. Yeah. And supplement the same. And the supplement companies, that's a really clever business, because they don't even really have, they've got nothing compared to the testing procedures that the pharmaceutical companies have. You know, so there's some really, really interesting stuff to read. Something that the reason why, if you did have a look at it, is how do you measure health and what does health look like for you? I would say think about it, because so many of us, and I just want to be healthy. But unless you've defined what that means, like for some people, healthy might mean having a six-pack and being able to run 20 Ks. Some people might say being healthy is living until I'm 100 and being mobile. But because when you know what the end result is, then you work back from there. So if I want to be, and I'm not suggesting this is, if I want to be 100 and I want to be active and mobile when I'm 100, will I flog myself in powerlifting? Or, is that going to get me there? Yeah. So it's when you find your goal, then you work back from there and build your. So if you want to live to be long and healthy, remember last week when I said, hey, who here has been stabbed? Who here knows someone has been stabbed? Who here has been shot? Blah, 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 like that. No one put their hand up. And then I said, who here knows someone who's got diabetes? Up goes hands. Heart attacks, up goes hands. All of those things. We are living in an environment that does not promote longevity. And one of the reasons, and I do suggest you look at this, don't just believe me, one of the reasons that we have a longer lifespan is because we're not dying when we're babies. It's not because we're living longer. Yeah, so those extra years are added on at infancy because we're not dying. So that's why the lifespan is longer. And also looking at the lifespan of, say, when people hit 60 is when we start to pack up. We start to get cholesterol, we start to get heart disease, those things start to come up. So if you can measure your health from a distance, it will more clearly define what you need to do now. Make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I agree totally that I've got my health definition, have had for years and years. I read that annually.
Yeah. I think it, and mine completely changed it completely changed how I live, because how I was living there was no way, I doubt very much I would have got to where I got to, because I overtrained and I overate bad foods, and I thought I was healthy because I didn't eat a lot of junk, but I ate high protein diet, animal based diet. I still ate veggies, I exercised too much.
Yeah, that's why I was asking that question at the beginning about the exercise for a flat line from now until you're 99 or 120 years old.
Yep.
That exercise, yeah.
Well, I mean, Will, if you think about an old Asian person, what do they look like?
They'd be a healthy weight. They'd be healthy weight or probably skinny.
And are they moving?
Yeah.
Are they squatting down? Are they bending?
Oh, yeah. Flexible, yeah.
So how many, if you look in that, like if you think back in the Western world, how many people get to be in their 90s, they can squat down, they can get up and down, they can bend over? Yeah.
0.
Yeah. And then that then ties me back to going, hey, we know we live in this environment that is conducive for that outcome. There's this really cool saying, and it says, if you keep going where you're headed, you're going to end up there.
Yeah.
But we have this funny thing, and it tends to be more so a male thing than a female thing, for whatever reason, is that the health gets left to last. We all put our hand up and say health is vital, but actually it's like love. Love is an action. It's not a word. Love is action. I love you through action. I don't love you through words. Because, if you've ever loved anyone, you will know that you don't love them every minute. Sometimes you want to kill them.
Yeah. Coming back to your health is a good way of looking at your health is like in terms of keeping it in focus is a wheel of life, which allows you to put health and finances and all these other things in front of you in a summary, so you know what's important.
Yeah. Covey talks about. Does Covey have that in his book, or something?
I'm not sure if he does. I've read so much of that kind of self-help that I don't know where I got it from.
Yeah, that's because that was good that you mentioned that book, because that is a really good book, guys. The 7 Secrets of Successful People. So that's he does a really good job at that, I think. Any questions? Shoot them out. I'm just having a look. So with those questions that I suggested, I wanted to just start getting you guys to maybe, if you wanted to, think about some of the, because we are coming towards the end, and as much as you can, the more you keep what you've done, not just as a challenge, not just as a short-term thing, the more you can integrate it into your life, the better. And if you have still got questions around that, then ask. Not necessarily right now in front of everyone, but send me an email. You know, if there's stuff you don't agree with or then ask me. And if I don't know, I'll try to find out.
Speaking of the program, we're on webinar 5 at the moment.
Correct.
How many weeks are left? What are we?
I think we've got...
Right.
No, but we're going to do a couple more just to see how everyone's going. Because one of the things with diets, but I don't mean that in the normal sense. One of the things with diets or challenges is the most important part is the coming off. So I say, again, just because it's my experience, when I was competing, the most essential part was after the competition. Was after it. How I looked after, you know, I could do a lot of damage after that. So that it's really important is to not just put it down and leave it as an experience, but to really pull some stuff out of this and try and work it into your life.
Yeah, but what you've given us so far is a ton of education. So you've enabled us to move forward in that direction.
And it's just so worth it, because like we were talking about before, if you have your end goal in sight and you start to educate yourself with other issues, probably moral issues being the hardest for people. So if you can't broach that, if that's something you can't go for, then don't. Just leave it. Just leave the moral, the ethical issues out, and maybe look into the environmental impact and the social impact and the economic impact. And they can be ways that will make you shop differently, look at food differently. I mean, I have the pleasure of working with a woman at the moment, and it's, you know, it's just, she's talking about buying food from a service station. You know, food doesn't come out of a service station. And I'm sorry if you buy food from a servo, but it ain't food. Yeah, and some of the foods that we call foods, they're not food, they're products. And I can't remember if we've talked about that, and then we'll wrap it up soon so you guys can go, is if you can clearly define what you call a food and a product, there's like a heap of rules, food rules done then and there. Yeah. So if you can go, like for me, and you've got to define products really quite clearly. I'll do a little video and flick it to you. So we did talk about it a little bit, was that if I can make it in my own kitchen, then it's a viable product.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really makes it easy. So if you look at a protein bar, you will go, nah, it's not food, it's a product. Doesn't mean you don't eat it, but at least you're consciously eating something that you know is not good for you.
Yeah.
Which again, like I said, doesn't mean you never do it. You're not going to die if you eat one protein bar, or I was going to say if you eat one McDonald's burger, but you might if it's got mad cow disease in it. Just a joke. So, all right. Any questions, guys? Nah.
No.
You all happy to wrap it up, or anyone else want to talk a bit? No. All right. So again, questions, if you've got them, send them to me, because again, the more I know, the better. Then I can follow it up. I'll flick you through some information on protein deficiency and some links so you can go and really look at it, because it's no good you just listening to what I say, because you've got, and that was one of the reasons why I asked all these questions, was if you've got to know why you're making the choice. Otherwise it won't last very long. You've got to know why you're doing it. So I'll flick you some information on that, Morris, and have a read of it. And if you've got questions, ask me. I would highly recommend the China study. I think that is probably one of the most important books. If you only read that book, that may well do it for you. That may well do it for you. Have you read it, Will?
No, but I'm just looking on Audible now about purchase.
Yeah, don't look, buy.
Yeah, I will.
Remember, love is an action. So yeah, that's a really, really good book. They've actually got a China study solution. So that's a really fantastic book. And his son goes into telling you probably way better than I do, but just basically tells you how to put it into your life. So that's another really useful book, maybe for people that you know too. Sorry, Will, I didn't answer your question. I think we've actually got 5, 6. I think we've got 3 more Zooms if everybody wants to do that. Yeah, it's just so we can go, okay, what problems are you having? Just a forum to just share and see how everyone's going. And even after the challenge is done, if you find that you are really struggling in something, just contact us. Whether or not you're a member of the gym, whatever. Yeah, because the more people that, it's in my interest, I believe, that the more you head towards a plant-based diet, it's in my interest. Not because you're going to pay me, but because the world will be better. All of that jive, yeah, all of that stuff. So very much so. If after you wobble, you come back. All right. Shall we wrap it up?
Yes.
Yeah? All right. Have a great sleep, everyone. Jim, you need to go to bed.
Yeah, no, I need to go cook my dinner and then do my invoicing.
All right, guys, have a fab night, and if I will talk to you next week, if not before.
See ya.
See ya. See you, Mara.
Just add